Welcome to the Farm Dog Podcast. I am so excited to have you in today. I am going to be talking with Greg Christiansen. Greg is the owner of Grandview Livestock near Parker, Kansas. Greg has a ranch that raises sheep and goats and cattle to a lesser degree every day, it sounds like. But the sheep and goats are a big part of his operation. Greg has been a friend and a mentor to me in the meat goat business for a long time. And every time I talk to Greg on the phone, it starts out just a quick question for 5 minutes and it turns into an hour-long conversation. So I'm excited to have him here and for you to be able to hear what Greg has to say about the dogs that work on his farm and about farm dogs in general. And Greg, could you just tell us a little bit about your career in agriculture?
Yeah, I graduated from KSU, Kansas State University, and then went to a ranch in Northeast Texas, cattle ranch, and then went to a ranch in Kremlin, Colorado, and let's see, then we went to a ranch in Southwest Missouri, and then to a feedlot in Western Oklahoma, and then we moved back, well, where we live here now. Um, and I was in even in feed sales for a short time, and started helping my father-in-law farm, and then had some cattle. Uh, well, actually, the way I got into goats, I was meeting with a guy that trained border collies, and he was teaching me to train my dog. And he had a few goats that he trained the dog on. And I said, "Hey, where can I get some goats?" So, well, I'm going to go to a goat sale here and I'll just pick you up some. I said, "Okay, yeah, 3 or 4 or 10 or whatever." And when I went there the next time, he said, "Man, I just couldn't buy any goats. They just got way too high." And I said, "Well, how much were they?" And he's, I don't know. I think at the time they were maybe, 50 cents a pound, let's say. And I had my son with me, and he was having some trouble with math. He was in junior high, and he didn't see the relevance of math. And so we went home. I said, "Well, get your pencil paper out and let's just figure this up." And I kind of knew enough about how much a goat might eat and things. And so we uh, did the math and thought, man, we could maybe raise some goats and be profitable. Of course, we had our figures all wrong, but that's not the point. We were at least doing the figuring, and so we started buying some goats. Next goat sale I was at, I took those numbers back to Duff, the fellow that was helping me, and said, "Hey, does this look realistic?" And he said, "Oh yeah, that looks all right." The next goat sale that they had at Yates Center, Kansas, I was there. And my son was there, and Duff happened to be there. He just showed up, and he was buying goats based on our figures, and he started raising goats commercially the same time I did. He went into the registered business. But it was all because I had a border collie that I wanted to train that we even got into the goat business.
Yeah, that's an amazing story, and the story I I happen to know goes on from there. And actually, this is a great opportunity to mention that Greg is the author of a book called "Raising Meat Goats in a Commercial Operation," which is available at all the places you usually find books. And um, Greg's story is expanded upon in that book, and it explains, Greg, how those original numbers turned out not to be very accurate, and some of the challenges you had um, with getting into raising goats, and how dogs ultimately became a part of solving those problems. And I want to get into that a little bit, but first I just want to pause real quick there and say, um, ask you, Greg, you've grown up. So did you grow up on a farm before you went to Kansas State?
No, actually, I didn't. Um, I spent some summers on my grandfather's farm. I worked on some farms uh, around Chinook, Kansas, where we lived, but no, I grew up in town.
That's so did I. So that's we have that in common. And Greg, but you've been on lots of farms and ranches, and I wonder if you can think back a little bit and picture a favorite farm dog that you ran across as you were working on all those places, whether it was your own, somebody else's, whether it had a specific purpose on the farm or if it was just there. Is there a dog that stands out in your memory, or maybe an experience with a farm dog that stands out in your memory?
Well, I guess I got blue heelers first. We lived in Texas, and took that blue heeler with me to Colorado. Um, I don't know if I could really say I had a favorite dog. I mean, and this might be a little unusual to you or some of the people, but I look at dogs more as tools than as pets. Now, I like them. I don't get me wrong, and I pet them, but they are, I don't know, they're more to get a job done than they are for my pleasure for them just to be around. And so yeah, I really didn't. I had blue heelers through that time, and then I was always interested in border collies, and I got one here. Well, I don't know, 20 years ago when we got into goats, but um, I tell you that it's like this: the dog that maybe I would like the best, it's always the one that something happened to. I had a dog once that man, I think she just had so much potential and everything. And anyway, she got killed. Tragic accident, but um, so it's probably just that. It's just that in your mind, you think that dog really had it because you lost her. And uh, so if I guess if I had to pick a favorite, it would be that dog. I really thought had the most potential of any dog I've had
What
as
was
far as border collies.
what was that dog's name, Greg?
Oh, her name, I think, was Chigger.
Okay. Chigger. So what's fascinating here is the difficulty you had recalling the name of that dog. Tells us a story about how many dogs you've had over the years.
Oh, yeah,
And
sure.
maybe that's a good place to start. How many dogs do you have on your place or on your in your operation right now of all kinds?
Well, yeah, I just ran that through my mind this morning. We have 24 livestock guardian dogs that stay with the sheep and goats, and then I have two border collies. Um, and usually I have, one or two. I have an older dog that's um, I keep thinking she's going to get where we can't use her, and we don't use her very often. I have a 2-year-old dog I bought as a pup that I'm still training. But yeah, the 24 guardian dogs, yeah, they're just out there. They're not pets at all, and um, we don't have names for all of them, of course. And I mean, there's a few that stand out we might name, but if we name them, we probably forgot that name the next time we're out there. But uh,
Do you do you have any estimate of how many dogs you've owned in your lifetime?
you know, yeah, I don't. It'd have to be well over 50. I mean, we lose a couple of guardian dogs every year, probably just from, they get old, or sometimes they just disappear. And I don't have a clue what's happened to them. And we have that happen maybe once a year. Um, whether they go off and die, none of the neighbors ever say they showed up. Um, I don't know what happens to them, but I figure 2 to 3 dogs a year we're going to lose for some reason, um, guardian dogs. So, you take that times. Now, of course, when we started out, we only had maybe 4, 5, 6. And then as we'll have, well, I never put one guardian dog by itself with a herd. We have several herds scattered around different pastures. And so we'll have at least 2 dogs and sometimes 4 or 5 dogs in a herd, depending on the predator uh, population around and the amount of sheep or goats we have there and various things. But yeah, I don't like having one dog by itself in a herd, and no, unless it was just some odd circumstance. Because something happens to that dog, and then you got no dogs there. And so I always tell people, if you're considering a guardian dog, you know, get get two at least. If you just have one herd, get two. But so to answer your question, it would have to be over 50 and maybe 75. I mean, I don't know.
Right. I've had the luxury of visiting your place and seeing how your operation works. And just to give the listeners an idea, that the fact that a dog can kind of just go missing is not, for those of us who just have our small rural living, our small acreage place, that would be a big deal if a dog went missing. But the fact that a dog goes missing in your operation just speaks to the complexity of your operation. You have scattered pastures that are somewhat remote from your house, and the landscape in Kansas is full of predators, um, and you've got 25 dogs at a time. So you've got dogs of all ages, and it's not all that surprising, I guess, once a person has seen your operation, um, to know that that is likely. And I think it also speaks to the dangers for your livestock. There's the reason you have livestock guardian dogs in the first place is because the landscape is somewhat challenging. Is that accurate?
Uh, yeah, yeah, and just the predators, coyotes mostly, but even just stray dogs coming through is I'm sure we lose livestock to stray dogs and coyotes that we maybe never even know. Maybe kids or lambs are born and we never even know if they've been snatched up by a predator. And when we lose a dog, we'll kind of scan the neighboring landscape and around and check the neighbors. Nobody's seen it, and the dog might show back up. It's happened. Um, maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks, but one time, and we've had situations. We had a dog, uh, probably 10 miles away, and he had two or three dogs there, and some people in between that place, that pasture, and our house said, "Hey, there's a dog looks like could be yours. It's hanging out. I don't know. It was a certain location." And I said, "Oh, it's probably not ours. We don't have anything over there." Well, it was ours, and he just came back home, and but he was gone for well over a month, and he was at, we looked for him there, and one day he showed up here at this place. So,
Fascinating.
uh,
Wow, that's great. Do you think it's possible that you have lost livestock guardian dogs to predators or to stray dogs? Perhaps one of your dogs starts getting some age on it and finds itself in a tough situation with some strays or coyotes?
um, it's probably happened. You gotta. I guess I just don't know. And I'll go and find a dog with blood on it and everything. I mean, it's alive. It'd be in the pasture. We would show up, and whether he got in a scuffle with some of the other guardian dogs there, or a coyote, or I mean, we don't see mountain lions, but there have been several reports in this area, over the years of mountain lions. Yeah, I think it probably has happened. Um,
Hmm.
there's no doubt.
Yeah, interesting. Well, Greg, I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about. We've touched on it already because we just get rolling and we start talking. But for our audience, I wonder if you can just tell us a little bit more about the role that those livestock guardian dogs play, how they live, what their lives are like in your operation. Um, Maybe even a little bit about what breeds are in the general blood of your dogs across all your different pastures. Yeah, anything that might help the listener understand how a real working ranch uses these livestock guarding dogs would be great.
Yeah. Well, the breed we started with, we've had Akbash and Anatolian Shepherd, um, and we've had some Great Pyrenees dogs. And the Great Pyrenees are more of a perimeter dog, and their perimeter may not be your fence line. And so they tend to roam a little bit. That's just doing their job. They're not bad dogs. So if you don't have a large pasture area, um, they may be over at your neighbors or something. But the Anatolians and the Akbash, and we've had Komondors. Have longer hair, and their hair gets, I don't know, kind of nasty and irritates them during the summertime. But they're good dogs. And the Akbash Anatolians are short-haired, and they stay with the animals, and they're out there 24/7. Um, good weather, bad weather, rain, terrible snow, wherever the goats lay down, the dogs are going to lay down. And they don't want to come in your house. They don't want to. They might go in a shed or something if you have something out there, if the other animals do. Um, but those are our main dogs that we use, or breeds that we use right now, and they've just sort of got crossed over the years. So it'll be a cross of those kind of dogs. And well, when you get a pup, you need to raise that pup with the livestock you want it to guard, and then they just kind of grow up becoming part of that. Um, so we'll raise the pups, and we'll put a few sheep or goats, or a combination of, in a pen. Let's say it's 40 by 60 or something, that with these pups, and a place they can go to eat dog food and get away from the animals, and they'll just learn. They just lay down together, and then, when they get up, you can't turn them out when they're little bitty out into a bigger pasture. They could be coyote bait themselves, and so you want to be mindful of that. I'd say they're going to weigh, I don't know, 30 pounds, 40 pounds, and when we turn them out, they're going to be with some adult dogs. Um, they're not going to be just out on their own. Um, and we don't like to turn them out with a herd that's going to be kidding, because they're just playful pups, and they'll play with those kids, and could actually kill them, or chew on their ears or something. And so you just have to be mindful of that, and give them the benefit of the doubt for a while. Um, but yeah, the dogs are truly amazing. They just want to be with the animals. The good ones do. Now it's like anything. There'll be some that don't work out for you. If you're getting pups, you need to get them from somebody that raises them for guardian dogs. Their parents are good guardian dogs, that kind of thing. And we've had dogs when we catch up a group of sheep or goats somewhere, and maybe there'll be dogs with them. Well, we would bring those sheep and goats home here to give vaccinations and worm them, various things. But we have to leave 2 or 3 or 4 goats. We'll just work them by hand and kick them back out of the trailer into the pen, because if we don't leave a few goats there, I've had those dogs follow me home 6 or 8 miles. Yeah, I'd have the first time it happened, a neighbor called and said, "Hey, your dog's at my house, but he's not here now, but he was just," and they were just following. I don't even know how they knew where they were going. Um, and the dog showed up here at home. That would have been about 6 or 8 miles away, where and we put him back into the herd, put him back in the trailer when we got done working that herd, and took him back to that bunch. The other dogs there, I think just one of those dogs came home that time. But so we've just learned that you need to leave some animals in the pen to keep them happy until you can bring back their herd to them. Uh, and you can swap dogs between herds. We'll have maybe something happened to a dog in one herd, and so we can bring a dog from another herd and put in that herd, and they seem to understand. I've had people ask me that, but we don't really have any trouble switching dogs between herds. They may have to figure out the pecking order for a while, and once in a while, well, we will have a dog that has been with the herds for a while with two or three or four other dogs, and then those dogs just start picking on him for some reason. Last year we had that happen, and we brought that dog home, and he was in terrible shape. They wouldn't let him eat, and they kind of chewed on him superficially. It looked worse than it was. And then we brought him home, but he's fine today. So the dog thing is just another layer of raising sheep and goats. I mean, if you've got to be able to handle them, you got to kind of like them. You've got to just deal with those personalities. Each dog kind of has its own personality. Some of them run up to the gate when you get there and they're very friendly, let you pet them. Some aren't. Some are just standoffish and you probably can't catch them. So you just have to deal with those personalities within the dogs. It's more within each dog than it is within the breed. I mean, it's within the breed more than different breeds.
Hey, I think that brings up an interesting point, Greg, where folks who are concerned about the humane treatment of predators and uh, have not having to kill or eliminate populations of predators physically, they hear about livestock guardian dogs and they think, well, this is really easy. Farmer, rancher, just go get livestock guardian dogs and your problem will be solved and no predator will have to be killed ever, except the ones who decide to tangle with the guardian dogs. And so it's simple. And so if you don't just automatically default to guardian dogs, then you must you must you must enjoy the idea of killing predators, or you must just be cruel. But livestock guardian dogs, they add a whole layer of complication, don't they? They bring their own challenges and problems.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And it's mostly just their presence out there that will deter predators. We have found, um, a coyote or something that the dogs have killed. It's kind of rare, but yeah, you've got to be able to deal with the dog problems. The dog, now most of our dogs will be neutered or spayed, um, because yeah, if they're not, they're gonna find a neighbor's dog. They're gonna tend to roam during that period, and uh, you've got kind of just disease problems, not too many, but things that happen to dogs. Yeah, yeah, it would be easier to raise small ruminants without dogs, but you wouldn't have very many small ruminants without the dogs. Yeah, yes.
Right, right. Do you, Greg, can you recall a favorite story? I mean, the story about the dogs following the trailer back to the home place because they're just that bonded to the herd is a great story. Do you have any others that just demonstrate how effective the livestock guardian dogs can be and how bonded they get to the herd?
Um, well, I probably do, but if yeah,
Well, I know you say in your book that if you go check on your goats and you can't find your dog, keep
yeah,
looking because there's a reason.
yeah, yeah. You a lot of times, and this will happen a lot during kidding season, but it could happen any time that have a sick goat or a dead goat, and often the pasture by itself. And if we go in and maybe there's supposed to be three dogs there, we're only finding two. Yeah, you could have one that left the pasture on you, but you better look around because he's probably going to be laying with that hurt or injured or goat that just had twins off by itself or something like that, and they'll just lay there. Now the other two might be with the herd, and I don't know if they have some kind of secret communication and saying, well, hey, I'll stay here and watch these, and you go watch the others. Um, yeah, I don't know how they determine that, but oftentimes, and that'll be especially during kidding season, uh, that'll happen. That dog would just be taken care of. Uh, a, couple kids that were just born like that, and you know how well cattle. Sometimes you have a bunch of calves, and you'll have a cow that's babysitting a bunch of calves. You say, well, the goats especially might do that. There'll be a bunch of kids off somewhere and a goat or two maybe babysitting them, but there'll be a dog there, usually that dog, and then the rest of the herd might be out grazing or something else. But um, yeah, I don't know how they know this. I don't, and it's not that people say, well, how do you train your dog? We don't really train it other than raising it with the livestock it's going to guard. Uh, we don't train them to sit or stay, or they don't know their name if they have one. But but if we holler at them, they know they're probably doing something wrong. Maybe they're chasing a kid around or something that they need to stop doing. But yeah, that will happen um, quite often, actually.
Greg, you mentioned that the Great Pyrenees breed tends to be kind of a patrolling dog, like wanting to wander around the edge of the pasture, and of course they don't really know to stay right inside your property line. Um, do you have a preference for the style of dogs, or can you describe the differences in style of one dog to the next?
Uh, well, just in our area, yeah, the Great Pyrenees doesn't work as well, at least for me. I had one dog, one Great Pyrenees actually. She was a unique. She was black, and I don't know if she was crossed with something or what happened, but she stayed with them relentlessly. But yeah, if we just use a single electric wire around the perimeter of our barbed wire fence, cattle pastures, and that keeps our sheep and goats in. But a dog will find his way out if they want out, and so um, yeah, then they would be at the neighbors, or they would. I mean, they might be several miles away, honestly. And so no, I prefer a dog that's going to stay closer to the sheep and goats, just because we're in an area that's maybe not as populated as where you're at, but we'll have neighbors within, half a mile or closer sometimes, and they may have pet dogs too, and that can be a challenge sometimes. Sometimes the neighbor's dog coming into your pasture, and um, but most often our dogs, they'll stand and bark, and that it hasn't been a problem for a while. The neighbor's dog coming in. Uh, but yeah, the closer you are to neighbors, you probably would rather have a dog that's going to be one that sticks closer with the animals, and not a perimeter dog. Yeah.
Well, that is a great place for us to pause just for a moment, and I would love to tell you a little bit about goats on the go. Um, I am not just the host of the Farm Dog podcast. I'm also the founder of Goats on the Go, which is a national brand of goat grazing operations. Goat grazing for vegetation control. So if you have too much of the wrong kind of vegetation, you might want to look up one of our over 30 affiliates nationwide who can provide goat grazing services for the specific purpose of managing your unwanted vegetation. If you're listening to this podcast, you might also have an interest in small scale agriculture, small ruminant sheep and goats, guardian dogs, herding dogs, and you might be interested in a farm related business. And we're looking for more affiliates all across the United States. And we would love to talk to you about becoming an affiliate of Goats on the Go and running your own operation, running your own business, and working in an agricultural setting. Even though you might, like Greg and me, have never started on the farm, this may be a good avenue for you to start producing a profit from your small herd of livestock, your small herd of sheep and goats, and we'd love to visit with you about that. You can find more information at goatsonthego.com. Greg, I think just based on time here, I could talk to you all day. We need to talk a little bit about your herding dogs, though. And so, another major component. Actually, Greg, tell us how many sheep and goats you have on your farm right now. Just
We've
adults.
yeah, we've got about, I'd say, 600 uh, of each breeding stock. Uh, and so yeah, there is kind of a challenge when you have herding dogs, and then you have these livestock guardian dogs that their job is to protect the sheep from predators, which could be another dog. Um, and so we introduce the border collies, and I'll carry at least one border collie with me most of the time if I'm just checking the livestock or something, and I let the dog out, and I let them get to know the guardian dogs, and they get to kind of sniff each other and check each other, and I'll be real um, cautious about now if I can't control that gathering dog, I'll put it on a leash or something where I could get her back real quick. But I'll just let them sniff each other to get to know each other a little bit over time, and they'll understand that, hey, when I'm there and that dog's there, that dog's okay. And so then as we maybe go out and gather uh, a herd of a couple hundred or so sheep or goats, well, then that's going to escalate. That they may be okay with that dog in the pasture, but when that dog starts moving around the sheep and gathering them, you need to watch that too. And a lot of times we'll be on a four-wheeler or something, and I'll have that dog close enough when she starts that I can interfere, and I can holler at the guardian dogs if they run up there to try to get rough with the gathering dog. I have lost some gathering dogs to my livestock guardian dogs. I mean, and this was happened when I wasn't there. Uh, one time a dog got out of its kennel at home here and went out and started gathering on its own. Well, I wasn't there, and so yeah, the guardian dog was doing its job. I couldn't fault them. It was just my mistake. It was an accident. Somehow that dog got out of its pen. And so, yeah, you need to be real cautious of that. I wouldn't let a gathering dog just roam loose around your place, because if they're good, they're going to be out there gathering livestock. And your guardian dog is not going to like that. And if you're there, okay, he's probably going to be okay with it if you've kind of trained him and showed him and introduced the dog. But if you're not there, it's not going to be a good scenario. So yeah, that is one thing I get asked about a lot. How do you work with two style of dogs there? And basically it's just introducing that dog and having him with you when he's out there.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity to point out that Greg hosts a YouTube channel. If you just search for Grandview Livestock, you'll find that YouTube channel. And Greg, you just posted a video about kind of introducing working with the herding dogs in the midst of the guardian dogs, and it's a delicate relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It's very unique, and you'll have dogs. Like I said, they each have different personality, and so you'll have dogs that you need to watch a little closer around your guardian dog, and you'll have some that get along fine. Uh, so yeah, just be aware of that and use caution, but it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And for our audience, if perhaps some of our audience members don't have a lot of experience with either guardian dogs or herding dogs, they are sometimes lumped together as in just the aesthetic of a farmer or ranch dog. You think of broadly speaking, a sheep dog, but they're distinct. They have distinct purposes on the farm. The guardian dogs being, the Pyrenees and the Anatolian and the Akbash, that their purpose is just to live with and protect the
Yeah.
livestock. And the herding dog's nature, correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but it really comes from a hunting predatory instinct. They're circling livestock and
Mhm.
intimidating livestock and moving them around, so that can trigger some things in those
Right.
guardian dogs.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
that's exactly right. They're both just doing their job. But uh, yeah, it's very unique, um, but yeah, it can be done, and we use them both together. But you know, I wouldn't start out as a novice and say, yeah, just dump your dog out there and go gather sheep. You need
yeah,
to introduce them like that. But yeah, I have several videos about our guardian dogs, and actually some showing the border collies working together, and even how, like, well, we feed our guardian dogs. We don't take feed out to them every day. We have self-feeding dog food feeders in a kind of in a cage, built with cattle panels, maybe, I don't know, 6 by 6 cage with a hole cut in it, um, where the dog is learns to jump in through the hole, and hopefully the sheep and goats. Um, Once in a while, we'll get a goat that'll jump through there. We'll have to get rid of her or something, but the dog can jump through there anytime he wants and get dog food. And so we're only going out there to a particular pasture maybe once a week or something. Just, we're checking the livestock, we're checking the dog food, we're checking the dogs. Um, uh, and so, yeah, a lot of people want to know, well, how do you feed them, and that's how we do it. Um, and that's part of the training of a pup. Uh, he'll be he'll learn to go in through the cattle panel. So of course, when they're small, they can go through the small squares of that cattle panel and get in there and eat dog food. But and then we'll put the hole that they're going to jump in. We'll put it maybe lower to the ground, and then we'll put it a little higher with maybe some blocks for him to step on to learn to get in. If you get a new dog, let's just say you was to buy an adult dog somewhere that hadn't been trained to a dog food feeder, you can usually put them inside the feeder with the feed and close it up on them, and then they'll find their way out. They'll jump out, they'll find the hole. Um, you do that a few times, and they'll usually find the way out. I say that we have had times when, you put it in there one day and he's still in there the next day, and so we have to let it out, and then we get hungry. But you do it a few times, and they'll usually figure that out. Yeah. Um,
yeah. I'd really recommend that anybody who's interested in using livestock guardian dogs as working dogs with their livestock to check out Greg's YouTube channel. It's a great resource for learning from a guy who's figured a lot of this out already. Greg, your herding dogs, are they primarily border collies, or what other breeds have you used?
uh, it's primarily border collies. I've had a couple kelpies, and I liked them well. Just the particular dogs that I had, the particular kelpies, just didn't seem to work out. And well, one of them was one of those that got killed by my guardian dogs. Got loose that day. Another one, um, she just she was a great dog. She could be in the right place at the right time, but she would not bite an animal. And there's not a lot of times where a gathering dog has to bite, but sometimes we're moving sheep or goats in a pen, in a small corral, from one pen to another. Uh, if that animal turns around and challenges the dog needs to be able to bite at it, nip it, turn it, and make it go where it wants to. And so, um, other than that, she was a great dog. She was a good pasture dog, where they don't have to be as close to the animals. But in the pen, she just didn't work out. And so I don't know, I traded her. I've had uh, blue heelers, and blue heelers are normally not a gathering dog. I've heard of some people have a strain that does gather, but they're mostly just a trailing dog that's gonna move uh, livestock away from you. A gathering dog's natural instinct is to gather livestock toward you. Now you can train them to drive livestock away from you, and mine do both. Um, but their natural instinct is to go out in a pasture, circle them, and bring them to wherever you are, and you can walk along, and they'll just follow you with the livestock. Um, so there's a difference in livestock dogs, or gathering dog gathers, and then there's driving dogs. A kelpie is a gathering dog, but it can be taught to drive. And I wouldn't mind trying another kelpie sometime. But
Greg, one of the an impetus for me starting this podcast is that I am sometime in the near future going to be starting with my first herding dog puppy, and so I'm going to be researching breeders, selecting a breeder, getting a puppy, doing that initial just conditioning to my home and my farm, and I'm going to be doing all the training that is seems overwhelming to me now. And so I started down this path, and I thought, if I've got, maybe if I started a podcast and I've got this friend Greg Christiansen, maybe I can talk to a bunch of experts and share that with other people. And so that'll be kind of a recurring theme in future episodes of this podcast, Greg. And I wonder if you could just give me a little bit of advice. First, I have a question, and then second, any other advice you'd give me besides the answer to that question. How, that I also raise goats. Are the demands for sheep and goats when it comes to a herding dog different? Or is if the dog can handle sheep, can it also handle goats? Or is there something unique that I should be looking for? Um, and then just generally, what advice do you have for me?
yeah, I would say my experience is if a dog can handle sheep, it can handle goats. Sheep hang together, herd a little bit easier. They don't, one sheep doesn't like to be by itself. Now, one goat sometimes will run off um, if there is too much pressure applied or something. But they like to stay in the herd also, but not to the degree that sheep do. So let's say you start with a border collie pup, and you bring this pup home, and for a while you're just going to let it be a pup, and the more you can take it with you, the better off you are. My my pups, when I have them, I teach all my dogs to ride on the floor of my pickup. I don't like them in the back of my pickup. You spend so much time training the dog. I mean, you're invested in this dog, and so yeah, I just let them. They'll get on the floor. They'll stay on the floor, and that's fine with me. I don't want them in the seat. And a little bit of training, and that dog will stay on the floor. And and you take them with you as often as you can, as much as you can. If I stop and go into Walmart, and that dog will just stay on the floor, like keep the windows rolled down or something. But and so as you progress, you'll want to get a down on it. You'll want that to be under control. So when you introduce him to animals, because he's going to forget, because that instinct to herd is going to take over. And so you'll maybe get a leash, and uh, say down, and you'll put that leash through your boot where the heel and the sole meet. Kind of there's that groove, and you can just tug it a little bit, and force that dog down first few times, and saying down, and you'll just keep doing that, and it won't take very long. Dogs are pretty smart, that you'll have a down on that dog and a stay. You'll want a stay. I like those two commands before you get them into an excitable situation, like put them in with a pen with a few goats. And I would probably start out with sheep if I had the option, but I started a lot of dogs out, training them on goats. But the sheep do stick together just slightly better let's just say three goats versus 3 sheep, you might get one goat that'll just uh, kind of go off by itself there, but it'll work, and you'll have them in a small pen. A round pen's perfect, but I've used square pen on, that's just what I have, and maybe it's a 40 by 60 pen or something, and the dog's on a leash. And at first, you're just going to let that dog do whatever he's going to do. And you just let the leash go and just let him play and have fun. He's just going to, maybe he won't do anything. I mean, there'll be a time that something just triggers in that dog, and then all of a sudden, he'll just start chasing them. At first, he may not. He may just walk up and sniff them, and you may do this for a few weeks, and you may think, well, I don't know if this dog's going to do it, and then most of the time there'll be something that happens in that dog, and he'll start chasing, and uh, and it tell you it works really well if you've been feeding these goats a little bit with a bucket, and that way they're going to follow you around. And so soon that dog's going to learn, and he's going to be behind them, and those goats are going to be following you. And he's just going to think he's hurting them, see? But they're just following you, but he doesn't know that. And so you'll maybe dump a little bit of feed out in the middle of that pen, and you let that dog circle those animals. And you might get a long uh, stick or a piece of PVC pipe or something to keep that dog pushed out a little bit. Slap it in front of him. You don't have to hit him with it, and you'll just be slapping it, keeping him pushed out, because he'll probably want to jump in there and maybe bite one of them, or he doesn't need to be that close, but he doesn't understand that. And so you'll just keep circling him, and you'll use the universal commands. You can use any command. You can use right or left. Universal commands would be away to me, which would be to that dog's right, or my left if I'm facing the dog, or come by or go by would be the other direction. But you would use that command so he starts learning it real early, and you move, and border collies are real uh, easy to learn. It's just their instinct to go opposite of you. Balance, they call it, balance that livestock off of you. So when you move, they're going to move and the opposite way, or to be, facing you. And maybe you walk away a little bit, and those sheep and goats will move with you if you've been feeding them and you got this bucket in your hand. And so yeah, you just do that, and probably, well, some people won't start a dog till they're 2 years old. I've usually started them before that, and maybe just introduce them to livestock. Maybe they're 6 months old, or you don't want them to get hurt, but just see what they're going to do. And then you can, as soon as they're kind of, it puts a lot of mental pressure on a young dog when you're training it, because it's just such a overstimulating environment. See, so you don't want to overdo it. Just a few minutes. Maybe this dog's 8 months old. You're going to do 5 minutes. Maybe once a day, maybe twice a day, and then you're off doing something else, or you put him in the kennel. If you're not there, I wouldn't let him just roam around, because he's going to want to get back in there and do that if he's a good dog. If he doesn't do that, I'd be worried about him. So that's kind of the progression, and you just work in this pen for quite some time. Maybe let those goats out into a bigger pen, and it'll be brand new, the dog. You'll think, oh, we're doing the same thing. Well, no, it's brand new. Or you bring some different animals in. It's almost like you got to start over for a little bit, because it's brand new to him. And you'll just kind of keep doing that. And it's a lot of their instinct. There's not, it's just sort of like hunt dog hunts. You can't teach a hunt dog maybe to hunt. I don't know much about them, but you can't teach a gathering dog to gather. You can only control it somewhat.
Right, right. And I suppose try to keep all of the experiences with livestock positive all the
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
or as much as you can set them up to have a successful experience.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Do
and
you?
I
Sorry.
just
Go ahead,
say
Greg.
to stop before he's ready to quit, before he tires out and it gets to be old for that day, stop him kind of while he's still wanting to work. Um,
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I have to constantly remind myself that. I've trained a couple of hunting dogs, and um, the advice was always given to me: quit while they're excited, while they're still excited about it, and just keep the sessions really short. Well, I thought short meant 15, 20 minutes to half an hour, but it's probably better to err on the side of 2 minutes, two
yeah,
repetitions.
yeah.
It, short is a lot shorter than I used to think.
Hmm. And you could do, like that. Maybe you could do it twice a day. You know,
Hmm.
2, 3, 4 minutes twice a day, uh, if you have that option. Yeah.
Yeah. Greg, I think that's a great place to start and great advice. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Have a great day out there with your dogs and goats and sheep today. Okay?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Greg.
You're welcome, Aaron.